really no way to look unchubby on this chair.
We should start with one of those. There you go.
Hey, we're back. The after party, KUN News D18. You know, I thought we were going to take a break after the primary election, but we're well rested and ready to go. Our analyst for tonight, Senator Fernando Esteves, outgoing Senator Fernando Esteves. She's the legislative committee chair for the Republican Party.
Close, Chris. The secretary of the Republican Party of Guam.
That's right, same smell, right? And from the Free Association Task Force, Adrian Cruz, of course, our co-host Sabrina Salas-Matanani. Pretty interesting group of candidates. You know, kudos, because I'm pretty sure a lot of the candidates were just so burnt out from campaigning for the primary, but Clint Rogel, Jose A. San Augustine were here tonight, and Jose did way better than I thought he was going to do.
Tonight?
No,
or in the
election,
in
yeah.
general, yeah. What spot did he come in?
I think he was top 10, right?
Top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely
Seven-
top 15.
I
Seventh
want to
or
say seventh, yeah. And Clint, actually, I felt he didn't do as good as I thought he was going to do.
I thought he was going to be a lot higher.
But you know, to his in his defense, he didn't really campaign a lot.
And don't forget the $50 cap.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
so definitely underspent
Yeah.
everybody. So I mean, all
But like
things
we
equal.
said on D8 on the after party when he was on the first time, if you have that name recognition, then maybe you can afford to kind of play with that a little.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It goes a long way.
He was fired up tonight, though.
And one thing about tonight's show, D18 tonight, we kind of changed the rules. We just decided we were just going to have a conversation with the candidates. We didn't give them any time constraints. It was just
Right.
like, here's a question, go for it. So there was no 30 seconds like the last time.
Oh yeah.
It was
It
good
was
though
good.
because you heard. It gave them more time to see, you know, what type of grasp they have on the topic, and so you see them go on a. I don't want to say go off on a tangent, but they were able to speak a lot more in depth, especially about agriculture.
Right.
I mean,
They're
what an
very
interesting
relaxed.
Yeah.
For sure. They're much more relaxed, I think, than in previous D18s, which, as the senator said, allowed them to kind of flesh out their thoughts.
And not have to worry about, oh my God, it's 30 seconds up, or am I almost out of time?
Right.
Adrian, what do you think of how they fared in the primary election?
Well, they did well. I think Clint did well given his constraints. But both of them have a lot of work left to do. They didn't do as well as they could have. I don't think either of them were in the top 5 at least. So they're really going to have to hustle. And I think it's nice of you guys to afford them a lot more time to be able to expound on their platforms because they're obviously going to need it.
Yeah.
I think it's good for the community too, giving them that extra airtime. So, you know, obviously what we're seeing with this election is people are more informed. People want to be more informed and more engaged. So giving them that outlet, giving them that opportunity, because when you go through the senatorial campaign, bless you.
Bless you.
You'll get a lot of invitations to forums with different groups, right?
Right.
Chamber of Commerce,
Sure.
or women's
GYP.
business heads, GYP.
Yeah.
But for the community at large that don't have access to that, this is a great forum for them to be able to answer questions. I mean,
Yeah.
not just be able to talk.
You guys are giving the community a valuable resource because I think the key word for this whole election has been change. But it's not just a carte blanche to just do whatever you want or just change for the sake of change. I think the electorate has really changed, and they're a little bit more informed. They're a lot more picky, and they want to get down to the real meat and potatoes of somebody's platform, not just because of a name. So as we see, everybody knows Clint Rogel from the news.
Right.
Yet he didn't do so well. Or at least he didn't place so high simply
Did
because...
we just have high expectations, though? Because I thought he was going to be top 3.
Well, traditionally, I think if people know you, you got it.
Right.
And obviously that wasn't the case. Same thing with Julius Cesar Santos.
Right.
He's also a personality. He didn't place in the top 5. Everybody
They're a little
knows.
different, though. I think I think that for the kind of personality Julius was, it's going to be interesting to see how he capitalizes on that because his name recognition doesn't come from the same area as Clint Rogel. I mean,
Right.
he's primarily, I mean, he's an actor. He was part of,
Sure.
obviously,
The
a comedic
Malibu
troupe,
King.
Right.
Right.
Function Boys. So.
But people see him on TV and
Right,
whatever.
right,
And
right.
so in the past, I think people could count on the fact that, hey, everybody knows me. They know my name. They know my face. It's a
I think
it's a
that
guarantee.
was, you're right. I think that was the case even with Montecillo Tyron, let's say, for example, right? She was a broadcaster for many years.
Right.
But also, you know, a real community person. So I think that, I think goes hand in hand. And she did really well. Females, I think, generally do better.
Right.
And I think
I wonder
her
why you think that.
broadcasters.
Me too.
They, I don't know, but so that kind of broadcaster kind of already known in the public. That you're right. That has helped before, and I think what she had going for her back then was she was also kind of in the community and doing things. And
Right.
not to say that these two gentlemen were not, but you're right. I think the electorate has changed. They just want
Right.
to see.
They want to hear your ideas.
They want to hear
more.
your ideas, yeah. And you'd think with social media there'd be more opportunity for that. And I think that this is one way, definitely. But I'm not seeing as many, and this is kind of off topic, but I'm not seeing as many people capitalize on social media
Right.
as we did before. You know, for example, like when Senator ran,
Yeah.
he produced something that ran ad nauseum. Sorry, Senator, that was great. No.
It's the only commercial I had.
Yeah, the one commercial he had, and it was one camera, you know, just straight through. It wasn't heavily edited, but it was so effective, you know. And I think had they done that, you know, maybe that it would have been a greater exposure for them, because that was definitely
Yeah.
what I think
Yeah.
what
I think
Yeah.
you see
what
that
helped.
Yeah.
with James Moylan, because
Yep.
he was all over,
All
he
over the
is
place.
still
Yes,
all
all
over,
over the
place.
social media.
Yeah,
But he
think-
also had his signs out, and so.
Yeah,
Early,
exactly,
early. Very
exactly.
early.
I think he's the sign guy. I mean,
Him and
It's
Amanda
had him out
Shelton.
early, yeah.
And Amanda.
Shelton.
Right.
yeah.
I think the primary went exactly how, at least for on the senatorial side, exactly how I expected it to go. Considering you have such a large vacuum in the legislature from people just not going to be there, I think even with kind of a mood for change, I think there was still kind of, you know, some caution with, you know, having 15 brand new people. So that's why you saw the incumbents and even former Senator
Formers, right,
Tina
yeah.
do
Doing
so
so
well.
well.
Do so well.
So I mean, taking out the top 5 out because they just happen to have 4 incumbents and Tina, I think considering where Clint placed is still relatively high.
Yeah, I think we're
Competing
being
in the
kind of hard on
primary.
him.
Yeah, but the thing to consider as well is, you know, like you were saying with the signs, Jim Moylan announced his campaign really early, and he started the campaign. I think Clint resigned in April, right
Yeah.
before the deadline.
Right.
Sure.
So, you know, that being the case, when, you know, when people pledge their votes out, when they start talking, it doesn't allow for a lot of time to campaign. Plus, add on the cap. Commercials are probably the most expensive form of media that you can get. But, you know, as she was saying, I got so much mileage on putting out commercials in the primary at a discount. And, you know, I still have people who say they knew nothing about me, but they gave me a chance because of the commercial.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And I think there are ways to use and capitalize on social media. And just, you know, I'm friends with Clint on Facebook, and I think what works on Facebook, it's pictures and videos. And
Right.
Clint does a lot of long posts, so maybe if he retools that, and
Right.
you know,
Nice little short bullet
do
points.
some videos, you know, like an issue video,
Like
I mean, a week,
Goalcast.
or you know, yeah.
Goalcast
So
is
there's your
really
info,
effective.
Clint. We're all helping you out here.
But Clint also, he has a lot of followers.
Right.
On Facebook. Some of the other candidates, they don't have
Right.
as much followers as somebody like Clint or Julius. Just for the simple fact of, you know, them being in the media.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily translate into a voter base.
I don't think
Right.
it does either.
Right, unless you're an established
Mike Nicholas.
yeah, you're established candidate or a politician where people are following you because you're
You're an
a
incumbent.
politician or you're an
Right,
incumbent.
right, yeah.
Sure.
So that when you do the long post, they're reading it out.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that if he weren't, you know, if he happens to get in there, if he were to get voted in, then it would give him a large, broad base to build a base, and
Right.
you'd probably see a lot of success in the follow-up election.
And you know, obviously, people liked what they heard from him because he made it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, capitalize on it.
Yeah.
And I think tonight he was a little more focused, a little more driven, and I could tell that, you know, he did his homework on what to say and
Right.
how to say it, and I think he did better than
Well,
he did
yeah,
the first time he was
he
on.
commanded the
Yeah.
couch out of
Yeah.
it too. That's
yeah, I was
for
gonna say,
sure.
who do you think did a better job, Jose or Clint?
But I was
Jose-
impressed with Jose too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Jose has he has a different. I think he appeals to a different demographic,
Right.
obviously, and him touching on things like agriculture. I think he's speaking. I don't know if he mentioned it. We were in there, but he's speaking from experience on that. He's a farmer and has had farming in his life for a long time. So I think, you know, his true want for agrarian reform, agricultural reform, and really capitalizing that as an industry on Guam, while not coming out, you know, as smoothly on in a forum like this. I think that he did really well.
Did you win a
Yeah.
pig at his fundraiser?
No, but if you go to his fundraisers, he does. He gives away cows and pigs. So
And I think that's what Nick was doing during the interview when Clint talked about agriculture being on his platform. So of course, you know, Nick wanted to go with, okay, so what do you mean? How are you going to support the farmers? And so Jose was the farmer, so it kind of worked out.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
got to hear from both of them, and they both could speak on the topic.
And I would say, you know, even for example, when I was running, you have to do what's genuine to you. I mean, you can't seem disingenuous. People really read through that. So as you're going through and figuring out, you just have to know you can't be all things to all people, right? And you have to find that balance between what really interests me. You know, you can't advocate for, you know, underwater basket weaving or something, you know, even though that's your hobby, if it's not like for the greater good, you know what I mean? So you have to find that balance between what are the needs of the community, what's the pulse of Guam and its people, at the same time something that you can speak to in a really educated way, you know, and not seem so prepped up,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I think with Jose, I would really like to, because he's a Veterans Affairs guy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I didn't come up.
I know.
He's a Marine.
Right. That came up.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that just briefly, but yeah, he's a Marine and is at the helm of Veterans Affairs. So
Yeah. And that's
And
something
Lord
I feel
knows
like,
we have a
I
lot of
mean,
veterans.
Yeah, we have veterans issues, and
He
And
was
they're a
out
large
there.
demographic.
It was Green Valor. They held a cleanup at
I saw
Veterans
that.
Cemetery,
Yeah.
and he was
Oh, yes.
actually there. He was
Yes.
hands-on. He was helping. He was taking the dirt out of the truck and helping.
he got
everybody.
dirty, got his hands dirty.
He was getting dirty. He was also barbecuing. He was, you know, he was out there helping everybody. He was there before I was, but you know,
Yeah.
so I know he'd been there a long time.
What do you guys think of a guy like Jose San Augustine and his real chances of getting elected?
Well, I mean, his last name gives him some coattails to ride on. But I mean, I don't really hear much out of Veterans Affairs. I don't think the broader public knows much about him. He's a little soft-spoken. I think he should capitalize on the fact that he has a relationship with veterans because it's a large voting demographic, and so you're right. I don't think he used it to the best of his ability.
Maybe
I
some
think he's
endorsements.
I gotta disagree.
I think he's a quiet force. He's
Yeah.
going to be a sleeper to me. I think he's going to come out really high and make it because, as you said, he's very soft-spoken. He doesn't have a lot of bravado, right? But I think that he is working in a lot of ways that we don't see, you know.
You know, when you look at the election overall, I mean, my guess and my feeling is that I don't think we're going to have more than 4, maybe 5 Republican senators. And so when you stack him up against the other Republicans that are running,
I don't know. I mean, stranger things have happened, right? I
Right.
mean, look at the Democrat congressional race. I mean, I don't know if anyone could have predicted that.
Well, that was the
right?
Republicans.
I
that
did.
So,
You know, I don't. I have to disagree.
do we have to go to a break yet?
I don't think.
Breaking?
I don't think Joe's soft-spoken. Actually, I think it's the opposite. He has a
Uh-huh.
very commanding personality, which he constantly
presence, yeah.
tries to tone down. You know, as
Yeah.
a former,
And I agree.
sergeant
Yeah.
major, which shows a lot of, I guess, temperament and wisdom in the
Temperament.
leadership roles that he's
Yeah.
been. Because if you've heard him speak at rallies, he has a very commanding presence. So soft-spoken's not a word I would use. I think it's more of a silent strain. But I think he does have an opportunity if he works hard enough to
Right.
go out there and get the votes. It just takes a lot of work.
Right.
I've
I mean, they made
always-
it this far.
They made it this far.
Right.
I've never agreed. I think my personal opinion, you know, when I want to run, you know, there's advice and they're like, hey, go with the veteran thing. You're a veteran, you know, your 3 tours, you're a
Right.
veteran, do that. But as a veteran, you know, I think it would, for example, would be like, it was already implied, right? I'm a veteran, I know what's going on, and it's always implied that I would support veteran issues,
Right,
being
right.
one that myself. It's
Yeah.
expected. So to go out there and run on that alone, my understanding and talking to a lot of veterans, you know, we're veterans, but we're more than that, right? We still care about healthcare, we still care about education, right? We are a lot of things and happen to be a veteran.
And
right?
you have
It doesn't
civilian
define
jobs
us.
and
Yeah.
other, you know,
Yeah.
other professions.
Yeah.
And I
in
noticed
addition to that.
veterans don't really talk about being veterans. It's always like, you know,
Well,
for
they
example,
do
President
within
Trump.
the
With their-
circles,
with their
within the
other
But they're
circles,
very,
yeah.
they're
They
very
wear their hats.
politicized,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
a lot of people who, you know, run for office want to capitalize.
But it's
On-
never worked.
on
I mean,
veterans, yeah.
can you name a single candidate
No,
who's
you're
won
right.
as
Yeah.
the veterans guy?
Right, right, right.
Right. And I think that's different because when you do that and say I'm running on this one issue, sometimes it could be successful, but it has to be still have broad range.
Yeah.
You can't say I'm running for one constituency group or the other because you isolate yourself from everybody else, right? So like, you know, for example, I think, you know, Senator or candidate Ben Servino, right? You know, I've talked to him about this. I said, you know, it's at first, remember the campaign was, you know, I'm here to fight for your most vulnerable,
Right.
The disabled. He's expanded on that, talking
Yeah.
about veterans and the elderly.
Accessibility
So,
for
accessibility.
all.
So
Yes.
he's been able to broaden that message and base. And it's all
Right.
about how do you package that in a message that affects everybody.
Let me ask you this: as a veteran, are you inclined to vote for someone who you know is a veteran?
I mean, to be honest, no.
Oh.
No, because
You
you
still
know-
got to earn your vote.
I mean, no, 1 in every 8 person on Guam's a veteran, right? It means something to me personally, but I think for the community, you know, you could stumble on a veteran.
Yeah,
That doesn't
right.
necessarily
Dime
make
a
you
dozen.
a
Yeah,
good
yeah, yeah.
senator, doesn't make you a
Legislator.
good governor,
Right.
but there's still value there because people who are veterans have a connection to you already, right? It doesn't necessarily guarantee you their vote,
Right.
but there's kind of a expectation that comes with being a veteran that you can, you know, I could talk to a veteran and that might be running and depending like that's a conversation starter right there, and now they can get into the platform issues and now they can
But it's
sell
not a
them.
deal breaker.
But it's
Right.
not necessarily a deal
A
breaker.
deal
make
breaker.
I
it
just
either.
don't see him though just as a veteran candidate. I also see him as someone who's been involved with public safety because he was the director of
Yeah.
the Department of Corrections.
My
So I
experience with Jose San Augustine is I did when I was doing comedy, I did a viral video, and I pretty much crucified him on, you know, how he handled the
No.
job at DOC. And you know, I'm
Shocking.
friends with some people that work for him, and they would tell me like, "Oh man, you know, he thinks you don't like him," and you know, there's a point I made fun of everybody on Guam, and you know, when I see him, we're cool, and you know, he didn't hold it against me, and I didn't hold it against him, so you know, for me, that kind of makes me respect the guy.
Yeah. I think you're your own disclaimer. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it's
I mean, you know, San
Chris.
Nicholas never got over it, but
Right.
usually everyone kind of gets over it.
But you have to be like, you have to have tough skin. You
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
take things personal. You can't
Absolutely.
be vindictive.
Right.
And, you know, those things happen. I mean, they've happened over a long period of time in the political spectrum, but it doesn't make for good policy. And ultimately, the people suffer from it. So there are a lot of good traits to both of them.
Right.
But I think you can definitely see that with Senator San Augustine specifically. I mean, you can, when you're looking on the camera and you're looking at the two candidates, right? They bring a different energy.
Yeah.
But you don't want the same energy in
Yeah.
the right. You don't want a legislature full of me, right? Protesters, because then nobody's going to be in there,
Yeah.
right? You don't want a
You're a
legislature full of people who are, you know, quiet, not saying. There needs to be a balance.
Yeah.
So both
I
of
agree.
them being in there.
I agree, and I think that's great on both sides. I think it's great on the Republican and Democrat side. Is this election has allowed for a lot of depth, and I mentioned that before. There's so many people who wouldn't maybe have traditionally come out to run, who are throwing their hat in the ring, and that's to be commended. And there's a lot of seats open.
Really makes me wish we
but-
had 21 seats.
You
I
know,
think we should.
I'm a
Yeah.
supporter of it, right?
I agree.
21 part-time, 21 seats, part-time legislature.
Sure,
I think it
absolutely.
could work.
You know,
because for
Part-time legislature,
representation-
21
The
seats.
don't
fact
like
that we
that idea
have
of
15
part-time.
people.
Well, the
Yeah.
argument always is you don't have
Yeah.
a part-time judiciary or a part-time
Yeah,
governor,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So why would you do that? But when you shrink down the number of legislators, you're just concentrating power
That's
to
right.
so
Yeah.
few people, and that's never
for
a
less
good, that's
discussion.
never a
That's
good
just
I think when
idea.
we were
Classroom,
21
you know?
and full time, it was, I
Yeah, I remember-
have good memories. Of
It was
Speaker
robust and
Pinko, Mark Forbes,
Sure,
a lot
yeah.
of great leaders
Tony
came out when,
Lamarana.
there weren't as many issues that
Yeah.
people complained about when the legislature had 21 people.
Mm-hmm.
That might come at a cost, but I think everything was a lot more deliberate, right? Everyone says now we don't have any more of the old greats, the senior statesmen we have anymore.
It is dangerous when you have a legislature that's smaller than a public school classroom.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's an issue there.
And then too, I feel like the legislature, for whatever reason, a lot of times is the whipping boy of the government of Guam. I mean,
No,
they
that's
have
true.
They have
We
one of the
get blamed
smallest
for
budgets.
everything. Yeah.
It's just crazy how much.
Backbreaking,
Point
right?
Point 0.002% for the
Yeah.
record.
See,
of the
Let me ask
budget.
you guys this, going back to Jose St. Augustine. What does he have to do? Because outside looking in, when it comes to the Republican candidates, I mean, off the top of my head, I think, like you said, we have 4 or 5 pretty strong ones. And then it's not necessarily a big drop off, but it just kind of goes, and then you have the rest of
rest.
them.
Well, you have to be careful because people who have placed 1, 2, 3 in the primary sometimes
Have
fall
lost,
off
right.
completely
So
in the
what,
general.
what does Jose need to
So-
do to stick out?
I could probably say I think he needs media.
Yeah.
Right.
He just because he maybe appeals to a different demographic doesn't mean he can't appeal
To more.
to
To
a demographic
others.
he otherwise normally
Sure.
wouldn't have,
Right.
right?
Sure.
Other farmers, other veterans, and the way to do that is media. I
Yeah.
mean, it's still the top. It's still the top access because it gets you into people's homes. People still watch TV, live stream, the podcast. All of that stuff still matters, right? So media, social media, and traditional media are still going to be crucial. But the question is, how does he take the things that he's passionate about, right? Farming, for example, and agriculture, and how does he turn that, or even recidivism and programs for substance
Rehabilitation,
rehabilitation.
reintegration.
How does he take
Sure.
that and turn that into a message that feels personal to the people that he's trying to appeal to?
He gets a campaign guy.
he
I
needs
feel
a
like he's
campaign
one of these
manager.
guys that needs a campaign manager to kind of just fine tune things and.
And
but
who
he's-
votes, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
who are the? I think there was in the news about
Monumco voters.
the Democrat that the Democrat, the demographic that actually votes, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of, I mean, with the resources, I think every candidate is having kind of a tough time, with the fundraising, right? I think there's just a lot of them out there. There's only few wells that are deep enough to sustain, multiple candidates.
And you know
donations.
the candidates who are backed by, special interests or big money because they're the ones you see everywhere.
Well, but it's not just
or personal
about that.
money. I mean,
Yeah,
some
no,
people
no, no,
Personal
yeah.
money. A lot of
Right,
people take
yeah.
loans.
Yeah,
and
they
people
take out
don't
loans.
realize that, right?
No, yeah.
Take
When-
$50,000.
Yeah.
When candidates do that, sometimes they invest. You don't really make money when you if you invest, take out a loan and spend X amount of dollars in your campaign, you're not making that back, right?
Yeah.
You don't get repaid.
Yeah.
That's your personal money. You're paying down the debt, and
That's
Yeah.
the life you chose.
it's the life you chose.
You know,
exactly.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
saw a viral video recently, and it was a mudslinging ad, and it basically was calling out the Democratic presumed winner for spending $1 million. And then I thought to myself, wow, where was this same person, whoever made this video, where were they when the Republican administration spent $4 million to,
Right.
Yes.
where
Republicans
were
are
they,
supposed to
right?
spend a lot of money,
Yeah.
right?
You know,
Yeah.
so you're right. It is an investment, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not just what am I going to get out of it.
Yeah.
That's not the way this works. And
Yeah.
shame
Right.
on you, whoever you are, because democracy is not about, well, what do I get out of this if I get elected into office? This is not a tree for you to be picking all the fruits and preserving it for yourself. You're supposed to be doing this as a public service. And so if you have somebody who's going to take their own personal resources because they feel that they can do a job to do that, well, hats off to them for doing that, because that's
Absolutely.
something that a lot of us would not do. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it.
Put your money where your
Put
mouth
your
is,
mouth-
right?
money
And,
where your
and
mouth
for
is.
me, it was, if
Yeah.
I'm going to ask somebody for a donation, I better be, equally ready to donate myself.
That's
right.
right.
And
Yeah.
again, it's about what you feel, right? You don't, if you're going to do it, don't do it 50%, do 100%, right?
Right.
Because if you don't believe in yourself enough to throw down your own money,
Right.
then what's
Yeah.
the point of running? People
Is it
are
a
not
reality
gonna
though?
believe
Like, you
in
know,
You
I
have
talked
to
to-
write your first check. You write the first check
Right.
as the candidate.
For me, I want to see these commercials. I want to see,
Yeah.
you know, everything.
Especially
on
if they're on
social media.
KUAM.
Yes, well,
A lot
yeah,
of
but
commercials on
I
KUAM.
like to see, because I feel like I get to know them. I mean, we have this forum, but
Yeah.
it's really just
Yeah.
I really want to see like I don't want to say.
You were gonna say
But-
all the like full saturation.
But it can't be though,
Like,
because
even on
people,
Hulu and
people
Netflix,
skip
right?
those ads. You know,
Like, how
the-
dare you? How
you know.
dare you interfere on my Netflix night? Just for that,
or
you
my
lost my
YouTubing,
vote.
my YouTubing.
And
What?
I don't know. I want to see it from these senatorial candidates.
Yeah,
Because-
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see that, and I want to see him be quirky. I want to see Jose San Augustine in a little like farmer hat, you know,
God, we should have
You know,
played
I
a
mean,
song
doing the
for
Frank
little
Ogden
bands
picking
when they came out.
cucumbers kind of thing.
And those are the things they
Oh,
I'm sure
boy.
both of them know, right?
that
And
weird?
most candidates know the strategy. They know what they have to do. They just have to do it. For me, everyone said, I didn't go to a lot of funerals. That just is not how I am, right? If I don't know the person, I don't go. But sometimes I would.
Very BJ
Um,
Cruz.
Yeah. But they said that's the toughest thing, right? For me, it wasn't. Asking somebody to believe in you enough to donate some money, that is the, most, I guess, humbling
Yeah.
experience, right?
But people do it, and there's a whole big part of the community
Yeah.
that
Exactly.
that's their game. They
But
give
What about
money
the
and then-
waves? Does that work?
The waves definitely
mean-
helps. They like to see you out there.
Waves work.
They don't work in groups, I think, as a senatorial candidate. I don't
Yeah.
think they always work in groups.
Take note,
Not
Will
huge.
Castro.
Not
Yeah.
huge.
Not
Not
huge.
huge groups.
But I know people whose candidates have lost the primary for the gubernatorial race. They took like $10,000 loans to give to their candidate. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so people will give you if they truly believe in your
And
message.
they
Yes.
play both sides. Like
They do,
because I've
you
seen
know.
all the campaign finance stuff. You got people who donate to Lou and Josh, also donate
Right.
to Tenorio.
And you just
and-
give a little
playing-
more to the one you
playing
think is
field.
going to
Yeah.
Well, let's just say they believe in democracy.
Right.
Yeah.
Just say that.
Yes.
They believe in
I
democracy.
think those
Cha-ching.
a lot of these older candidates that are running, I think they have a generational gap, and they really need to get out of their comfort zone and start looking at more effective means of social media. I think they rely just on the billboards
Sure.
and maybe a radio ad or something.
Right.
That's not cutting it anymore.
Yeah.
I think people are looking for more substance, and that's the way they get it.
Yeah, the billboards, I think, are only effective, and this is just, again, my view, and, talking to people. I think the billboards are only really effective if you do them early enough.
Right.
Yeah.
And number two,
Jim, Amanda.
if you're not an active name, right? So, for example, let's say, Lou's been out for a while, right? People don't know her face. New voters don't know what she looks like. So if she came up to talk to them, they would have no idea, right? So I think they're only good if you do them early enough in the campaign. I mean, you saw them with the other campaigns, with the other gubernatorials. The signs were out early. Everyone
Right.
was staking their claim. Senatorial candidates, it took a little bit longer. But this late in the game, going into the general, I don't believe they're going to do anyone any good.
now.
I think mass reach right now is going to
Yeah.
be social media,
Social media, for sure.
and traditional media.
Do you
You got
remember
70
when
days.
70 days.
Ray first ran for senator?
Yeah.
Then Carmen Fernandez
Yep,
first ran
yep,
for
yep.
senator. And I had no idea who they were.
But you know what? They had good
really-
campaign strategists.
Yeah.
They had John Moffness, and I mean, here's a guy who gets. I mean, he's still with Tenorio to this day, and this is a guy who took somebody like Ray, who nobody knew who he
And
was,
Carmen.
and it was like, remember when Ray first
Sure.
ran? There were like
And Carmen.
50 signs in 100 yards. I mean,
Well,
it was
and
like one of the first guys to
absent
do
of
that.
social media, that was really the only way.
Yeah, this is pre-social media.
Right,
right,
pre-social
yeah.
media. You had to have a lot of signs and print media, and then people want to hear your voice. Like, what do you sound like? Do you sound sincere?
Yeah.
So radio, and you
Radio's
can accomplish
huge.
all those things. Right.
So going back to the two candidates that sat on the couch tonight, who do you think did a better job of connecting with the viewers?
Oh, that's
Voters.
tough.
It
I
is.
think they connected to
Differently,
viewers,
yep.
but they both connected. Obviously, because they made it. But yeah, they spoke to different demographics. Not to say that one is larger or better than the other, but they overlapped a lot. And so I think that the two of them kind of fed off each other. And I think that because people resonate with one and they heard the views of the other, I think that the two have actually benefited from being
Yeah.
on together.
Well,
Because
there was a point where they disagreed, and that was the one question I think towards the beginning when they were talking. Nick asked
Finances.
a question, yeah, and
Yeah.
then Clint
Clinton
was,
said cut government waste, not
but he
people.
said you have to have a Democrat. That's why you should have a Democrat
yeah,
governor
yeah.
and a Democrat
Legislature.
legislature. And
Well, actually, that's a
Jose
complete
was like that.
opposite, right? It really should be if you want to cut waste, you should have a Republican governor and a Republican
Legislature.
But for whatever reason,
I think we're talking
Right.
about getting along. And,
Yeah.
and
Yes, which is a myth.
see, but that's risky. And again, I said this before, and I still theorize the Guam voter is still is more intelligent than people give him credit for.
Yeah.
The risk of having a supermajority like that, you run the risk. I mean, figure out how many of the campaigns are supporting Lou and Josh, how many of the senatorial candidates. That'd be a good question. Because what you don't want is you don't want a rubber stamp legislature. And so, yes, there's been a lot of drama between having opposing parties in Adelup and the legislature.
But that's what the
we-
voters usually do, right? They
Which
usually
one?
elect
Usually,
one. And,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As
And-
a natural check and balance.
as
Yeah.
a natural check and
Yes.
balance, but to have potentially have a rubber stamp legislature, and
Yeah.
to what Adrian was saying, potentially have a supermajority of 10 Democrats and a Democratic governor. I think that's throwing all your eggs in one basket, and that's very
Dangerous.
Or
very risky.
maybe people
Very
are just kind
dangerous.
of, the Republicans had 16 years, let's do a total.
That's
16
right.
years
Change,
of,
right.
of a certain balance, right?
Yeah.
And a give and take, and maybe if the voter wants
Yeah,
to
because
give.
I don't think the Republicans had carte blanche, as you can see. It's not like
Yeah.
it was 16 years of easy street. I mean, it was everything was hard fought
Yeah.
Well, if
on
you
the Republican side.
if you look around the world at the mood of Guam is more connected than we would like to give it credit for. And if you look around the world, and particularly in the United States, we see that they actually do things like that now. You have a Republican Congress with a Republican president. And I think that there is a complete generational shift in the kind of way that voters think about things now. And I think everything is a little more extremist. And so I think that it really is going to be a Democrat supermajority in the legislature and a Democrat in office, simply because they have that idea already in their head that the Republicans have had control for 16 years. And I think that's a whole generation of people already.
Yeah.
So I think the times are changing, and I think the writing is on the wall. We can say all we want that the voter on Guam is different, but I don't think they really are different from.
But
from
with a
other
Republican
places.
president, Republican Congress,
I was just
there's a
gonna
lot of
say.
different
I was gonna say, as Guam
gerrymandering.
is.
There's just a lot
Guam
of
is still
ways.
an entity of the United States, however which way we want to do that, and having a Republican governor has had its advantages since Trump has been in office, and I think that moving forward,
Not with
especially
the Trump tax cuts.
sort of
Can you tell me what?
barring, but I think that it would be harder if we think
not
it's.
really.
I think if it's hard, if it was harder. If we think it's hard now, imagine if we had a Democrat governor. It might be worse.
Yeah, I'd be
It
cautious.
would. I would be very cautious.
about-
I'm just
about
waiting
rubber
for that
stamp
tourism
legislature.
spike that President Trump said that we were going to have because of our
1,000%.
North Korea. 1,000%.
Was it
I'm waiting
1,000%?
for that.
Yeah.
man.
You know what's going to be interesting is I think as well as you see the candidates doing, especially on the Democrat side in the senatorial race, how that's going to work. They haven't experienced having their titular head as the governor. right? It's easy to have, again, the Don Quixote situation, have your enemy, right? And
Sure.
no matter what they say, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad,
Right,
and,
right.
and complete opposition. But again, what's going to happen if you have the supermajority and rubber stamp legislature? If you have a Democrat in Adelaide, again, the risk of the things that people are not going to know that's going on. Right now, people are appreciative of the fact that things are transparent because you have senators like Vice Speaker Therese Terlahi, who's very active on environmental issues, who looks at the fine details. But I think you're going to see a lot less of that if you have the new titular head of the Democrat Party.
I
as
wonder,
the
I think
governor.
there's always gonna be that group that wants to play devil's advocate, even if it is to another Democrat.
Right.
But again, we see that now.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you
Well,
don't
you're a
have eight.
Republican who kind of goes against
So
the administration from time to
Well,
time. so-
again, because and that's just me personally,
Right,
right?
right,
If
right.
something doesn't smell right, doesn't matter who it's from.
But there are a few of you guys.
There, right now, but we
Yeah.
don't know how that is because
Right,
right
yeah.
now my titular head is in Adelaide.
Yeah.
But we don't know yet how the characters are going to come out
Yeah.
if that were to reverse, right? You can see a very different legislature. And maybe they might get back into that mold, but it's going to take some time to grow into that, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to go, they're not going to go right into the legislature, into the 35th legislature, burning bridges with the new governor of Guam.
Yeah, I just don't think that people are gonna elect a Republican majority because they're gonna elect a Democrat governor. I see where you're coming from, but I feel like the Republicans have made their bed, and it's really, I mean,
winter is coming for the Republican Party.
I
I
wouldn't go that far.
disagree. I disagree
You know,
completely.
there's still
I have a
there's still
whole
great
other. I'm
opportunity.
thinking big picture. That's
Right,
right. I'm not
yeah.
thinking about just Guam. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about us as part of a larger nation. And
I think Trump is just he's kind of in a class of his own. I don't know.
You know,
if,
but
he
know,
wars with a
right?
lot of other Republicans.
I mean, and he and I think a lot of traditional, like for example, the late John McCain, for example, right? He and Trump were always, and so while Trump is not, what Republicans typically think of as being, he's very from the get go. He was on the
Against the
outside,
grain.
yeah, very against the grain, but that's he's still a Republican president. You know what I'm saying? And we have a Republican Congress. And so just to me, to flip that right now is very dangerous.
Well, they don't pay attention to us either way. We
Yeah.
could have a Martian in Congress and it wouldn't do anything. So,
As
I mean,
I've said though, we think it's hard now.
well,
Imagine.
I've heard all
If-
that rhetoric
Yeah, yeah,
before.
yeah.
Madeline
Well-
Berdalio was in there with her great hairdo in a Democratic Congress, and where did we get? We're paying for our own war reparations.
She was a
You think a
Democrat.
Republican is going to give us war reparations or anything like that?
This is a whole other after
Aye,
party,
aye,
guys.
yeah.
Great
Oh,
after
that's
party.
true. That's a whole other after party.
Gray hair. Can't believe
Yeah.
you went there.
Well, on that note,
Oh, man.
we're probably going to spend another hour behind the scenes discussing
Save the ozone.
President Trump. So, on behalf of our panelists, thanks so much for helping us kick off this round of D18, the after party. Senator Esteves from the Republican Party, obviously, Kate Baltazar, and congratulations on locking down that job.
Thanks. I look forward to all the PBS things going on.
And of course,
We're partners in some of those things.
Okay, let's go. Adrian Cruz, Free Association, for Sabrina Salas Mazzanati. My name is Chris Barnett, and this has been the after party. Hasta adios.
Good job.